we'll start with the most obvious connection. The one that a lot of people know about the Schumann resonances is that the Schumann resonances have the same magnetic field strength and frequency as human brainwave rhythms. Now, human brainwaves are a hallmark of consciousness. When human brainwaves go off, that's either a sign that you're unconscious, in a comatose state, or you're dead. So you can make someone go unconscious if you give them some sort of, there's certain ion channel blockers that will stop delta rhythms in the brain, or you can actually run an electrical current through someone's brain that'll turn off delta rhythms. These are 0 to 4 hertz brainwaves. And when you do that, the person goes unconscious. So brainwaves and consciousness are intimately linked together, and different brainwave states, like if you have a lot of beta rhythms, that is different in terms of your conscious experience than if you have a lot of alpha rhythms. Beta rhythms are 12 to 30 hertz, and then alpha rhythms are 8 to 12 hertz. So these brain waves are indicative of where you are in terms of your conscious experience, and you can alter them through things like meditation. We'll go into that right here. We have clear evidence that master meditators, they can increase their power density of certain brainwave frequencies across the entire brain as compared to controls who don't have that meditation experience. So what we're looking at here is standard deviation of at least 1 greater than normal in the gamma band. So this is the very high frequency band for brain waves, and this is the percentage of subjects that were able to activate these standard deviations greater than 1. And so this is our master meditator group. Here are our controls. You can see our controls. Some of them are able to get a little bit of an increase in gamma brainwave activity for parts of the brain, but the master meditators were able to do it in these 4 distinct regions, and you can even see the band there, which indicates total brain synchronicity. So when you have the ability to influence your brainwave state, sometimes this happens through a variety of reasons. It can be just your circumstance. It can be because there are a lot of atmospheric energies at play, like space weather events or thunderstorms in your area. But when you're able to activate this total brainwave synchronicity, then this allows you to reach higher states of consciousness. And the Schumann resonances exist in that gamma band and can also help to cultivate that total brain synchronicity. So Schumann resonances and brainwaves are the same, both in strength and in frequency, and they can enter into phase with each other, which means that there can be resonant energy and information interactions between them. So there's a lot there. That's a clear sign that the Schumann resonances function beyond just our individual biology. Perhaps they are a subtle energy field that links all of life together and form a collective unconscious. So as Obi-Wan said, it's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. Now, the Schumann resonances also have interactions with the heart and in general with the nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is synchronized with time-varying magnetic fields such as sub-1 Hz geomagnetic resonances and 7 to 45 plus Hz Schumann resonances. So these are like very broad field line resonances, these sub-1 Hz ones. These are changes in these field lines, very low, long period wave fluctuations. But then also the autonomic nervous system, which is that part of the nervous system that you're, for the most part, not able to control, like your respiration, your heart rate, your arousal level, respiration, and very like your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. It's not, you can control it. You can learn to control and alter your autonomic nervous system, but it is a bit more of a background subconscious process that is linked to the Schumann resonances. So when you look at this, you can see heart rate variability, total power, and very low frequency power is correlated with Schumann resonance power variation. So here in the red, we have the Schumann resonance's power. When it goes up, you can see that the heart rate variability, total power, and very low power measures also go up. This is during a pre-storm period for about 2 weeks measured across a bunch of volunteers who wore heart rate variability measuring devices, and then total power in the Schumann resonances was measured with magnetometers around the world, and then that data is aggregated together. Heart rate variability is the difference between heartbeats. So you have a heartbeat 1 second, and then 1.1 seconds later you have another, then 0.9 seconds you have another one, and it's an excellent indicator of your overall health and wellness and mortality and cardiovascular function and various things of this nature. So heart rate variability is a very powerful measure of your heart and autonomic nervous system health and function. And as you can see here, there are strong correlations with this data set that was collected by the HeartMath Institute and other researchers. You can see very strong correlations there between Schumann resonance's power and the human bioelectric system. Because these Schumann resonances, while we do create them with our brain, and we also do create them with our heart, these are influenced by more than just the biosphere. These are also influenced by any electromagnetic phenomenon. So if you have solar flares, if you have a geomagnetic storm, if you have a thunderstorm, you can influence it artificially by generating them with a Schumann resonance generator, whether this is like in the home or on a military industrial scale. And the power grid influences things like the Schumann resonances. You see here, this data was collected in Russia, which runs a 50 hertz power system. And you can see the harmonics for that there. 10 hertz harmonics show up at 30. So that very faint line right there at 30 hertz. And then the reason the 20 hertz harmonic shows up better is because it's piggybacking on the energy of the mode 3 already, because mode 3 is centered at 20 hertz. So you get this line that shows up across mode 3, and that is a 10 hertz harmonic from the 50 hertz power grid that piggybacks on. You can also see another line there. So there are various harmonics that also show up in this ELF spectrum, but there are a lot of interactions with in the Schumann resonances beyond just our biology, just the biosphere. And this can then influence our biology in some very broad ways. So for example, our cells have cell membranes. These are electrically polarized, and they contain a lot of different ion channels. Some of them are voltage gated. There's a variety of ion channels. And ion channels are activated by electromagnetic fields through ion cyclotron resonance and the movement of internal charge carriers. So ion channels can have electrons within them, and then as electromagnetic fields sweep across, of course, every single part of space-time, if they have time-varying properties, then those electrons, which have such a small mass but a high charge, compared to something like a proton, it's an equivalent charge but negative, but the mass is 1,800 times less, then an electron can be stimulated to move even by an extremely weak energy field like the Schumann resonances. So extremely low frequency fields like the Schumann resonances influence ion channels, and this is important because ion channels are a major regulatory system in all living organisms. They play a critical role in DNA synthesis, gene expression, cell division, true regeneration, like heart contractions, and of course they're needed for neural spiking, and they are one of those things that help create those brain waves that we measure. Now, proteins, of which ion channels are, kind of aggregates of proteins or single proteins is larger. Proteins and enzymes contain these internal charge carriers, electrons, within them, and they can be stimulated to move via electromagnetic fields, which then would alter their intrinsic properties and overall function. So you can have enzymes that become activated because the electromagnetic fields change and make it in such a way that it becomes conducive to metabolize a reaction at a lower energy level because it's moving the location of these electrons within the enzyme. And then proteins can be activated or turned off or altered in their function by electromagnetic fields via mechanisms like these. Now, this is really shown very well with DNA. The interaction with the interaction between Schumann resonances and DNA is really, really fascinating and where we have some of the best research. DNA exhibits a fractal antenna design. And this is because it's self-similar across all of its different scales. DNA has single strands, and then it gets wound up and curled and looped within itself until it becomes a chromosome, and then you have a whole bunch of different chromosomes. So if you look at a DNA molecule as a whole, it's quite similar in its design to just a single DNA strand, and that's self-similar design. So it has this fractal antenna design, which means that it can connect to a wide range of electromagnetic frequencies. On top of this, DNA is extremely conductive, and it contains free electrons within its base pairs. So it's conductive and contains the electrons needed to create electric current. Now, DNA also forms intricate loops. These are circuits, which is needed to establish an electric current. And even picotesla strength magnetic fields like the Schumann resonances are able to stimulate electron flux within DNA. And what this can do is it changes the genetic activation of DNA, so it can alter transcription, and just by moving electrons to different parts of the DNA structure, that informs the body which part of the DNA segment to transcribe. It also will change the shape and form of DNA, which also influences those factors. So electromagnetic fields can actually alter how your DNA activates. So people think DNA is the foundation of life. It's obviously incredibly important. It's like the blueprint, but electromagnetic fields would be the thing that drew the blueprint. So Schumann resonances are these very subtle electromagnetic energy fields that are able to interact with very important aspects of life like DNA. And the reason why these Schumann resonances are able to do that, whereas maybe an electric field would struggle, is because DNA is contained within cells, within the nucleus, and then also you have the cell membrane. These are electrically active, and so they, for the most part, block the electric fields from really being able to propagate through them. So if you do have an electric field, like a microvolt electric field in the body that interacts with the cell membrane, it might influence DNA through some secondary mechanism. Let's say it causes some voltage gated ion channel change of the cell membrane, which then has a secondary cascade which goes to the nucleus and influences DNA. But magnetic fields can pass directly through that cell membrane without any real attenuation, and therefore directly interact with DNA molecules. And these, again, are photons. So they can be absorbed into electrons. Very, very, very rarely they're absorbed into things like protons. But a DNA molecule is huge compared to a proton or a photon. So it's not like they're blocked out because DNA is small. These electromagnetic fields are one of the smallest things. They can have huge wavelengths. Their pulse rate can be fairly slow, and they travel at very high velocity depending on their medium. In a vacuum, it's like 300,000 kilometers per second. But just because DNA is tiny doesn't mean that they don't interact with them.